What's up, guys? Eric Prey, Table Rock Fishing Intel. Going to talk to you a little bit about the Jewel Pee Wee football jig. It has really quickly become one of the top baits here on Table Rock. You've heard a lot of guys talking about it the last, I don't know, probably 3 or 4 months as we've kind of started to transition into fall. The bite will continue to get better on it as we go deeper and deeper into the fall as the water cools down. So we wanted to give you a little bit more detail, a little bit more information about the Jewel Pee Wee football jig. I can tell you personally, I'm on the water, about 300 days a year, and it has really kind of become my go-to bait. If I'm struggling, if I'm having a hard time finding the fish, if I'm having a hard time getting bit, I can tie on a Pee Wee football jig, and most of the time I can catch fish on it. We're out here, it is a tough day. It is bluebird sky, cold this morning, very little wind, and the lake has come up about 3 feet. So we've got all those things going against us. Oh, I forgot to mention the full moon. We've got all those things going against us, and we're going to go out, we're going to fish a Pee Wee a little bit and see if we can show you different ways to catch fish on it. So we're out, it's cold, it's about 34, 35 degrees, hence the fog, hence the reason we're not going anywhere. Full moon, water's up 2 feet, and it's a bluebird sky once this fog burns off. So we're going to try to catch one on the Jewel Pee Wee football jig. I'm fishing a gravel with a little bit of ledge rock mixed, bank / point right through here. Fish. Not a keeper, but decent KY. Good Lord, he choked that. You think he wanted it? Another one busting behind me. Well, he might keep, he's close. Probably 14 7/8, which is pretty much my standard. But right here on the gravel mixed with ledge rock. See if we can get a bigger one. As far as equipment goes, I keep it fairly simple. I like to throw a 7.4 medium heavy action rod with an extremely fast tip on it. You want something that's got a softer tip. That way you are using a very light wire hook. So that way you're not running the risk of not getting a good hook set, number one, and number two, not bending that hook as you're fighting the fish. You want something that's got a lot of give to it. I throw it on 12 or 14 pound fluorocarbon. This is Sunline on here. It's what I like to use for most of my jig applications. Even though Table Rock's incredibly clear, you can get by with 12 or 14 pound fluorocarbon when you're fishing a jig. And then I'm throwing it with a extremely fast reel. This is an 8-3-to-1 reel right here. I want that so I can pick up the line, get things moving, and get that fish coming towards me as soon as I set the hook on him. I don't want to sit there and play with him or give him a chance to run at me and get slack in the line and possibly come off. So that is my basic setup. 7.4 rod, fluorocarbon, high-speed reel. That's how I fish the Jewel Pee Wee football jig. So, most football jigs, especially the bigger ones, the half, 3/4, 5/8, they're more of an open water, gravel flat type of a bait, where if you start throwing them around rock, just due to the shape and the size of the head, they have a tendency to hang up in the rock a lot more. The Pee Wee's got a smaller head design. It's still a football jig, so it still pushes along the bottom. It'll move a lot of silt and whatnot, so you can use it on those applications, the open water gravel applications. But where it really shines and makes a difference is that smaller head. And when you get this gravel mixed with rock, it'll come through the rock pretty well. Occasionally you will hang up, but it's going to happen with just about any bait when you're fishing this mix. But it comes through a lot of this rock and gravel mix a lot better than a normal size football jig. That, and again, it is the right size. This is the size of crawdads that fish feed on more of the time. Yeah, occasionally they do eat those giant crawdads. You'll catch one with a pincher the size of your index finger sticking out of its gullet. But day in, day out, when they're eating crawdads, they're eating a 2 to 3 inch crawdad, and that's what this thing mimics. Take it. Got it. He's running. Ain't big, but he's running. Another KY. Fat little dude. Good Lord. Look at the belly on that dude. I mean, look at the belly on that little guy. He's probably, I don't know, 12, 13 inches, but I bet he weighs a pound. Let's go through some of the details of what makes the Jewel Pee Wee football jig such a special and exceptional bait, not just on Table Rock, but all over the country. First thing you want to look at is the jig itself. If you look at the head itself, first thing you're going to notice is how light wired that hook is. It's extremely light wire, and it's that way so it can penetrate. Even on a long cast, even on lighter line, that hook will penetrate a fish's mouth and get a solid hook set. You notice it doesn't have a big heavy fiber weed guard on it. It doesn't need it. This is an open water application. This is not something you're going to throw in brush piles. It's not something you're going to flip around docks. It's for open water. Keep that in mind. If you want to flip, go to a different jig. But this is the jig that is going to catch fish on open water applications, gravel and rock mix sort of applications. You notice on the front it has a flat spot on the bottom, and that enables the jig, if I get it set right, that enables the jig to stand up. Puts that crawfish in a defensive position, so the claws are sticking up when that jig is sitting up like that. The other thing you'll notice on the front of it, it does have a little bit of an indentation or a divot on the front. What that does is stirs silt. If you've ever noticed crawdads moving along the bottom of a creek or even in the lake, they always leave a little silt trail. That's what that's designed to do. You also have a double keeper on the hook shank itself. Top keeper to keep your skirt in place so it doesn't slide down, and then an all-around keeper on the back to keep your soft plastics in place. We'll look at the colors on the jig. We'll start off with PB&J. That's kind of a traditional color. It's one that everybody throws. It's been around forever, but you'll notice it's a lot finer skirt, so it's a lot more subtle of a presentation. PB&J has always been a good color, especially a good post front color. Then we go to Hail Mary, which is kind of a green and brown mix, more green pumpkin, a little bit of heavy brown in it, with a little bit of gold and a little bit of purple flake. Another really good post front color, very subtle, very good color post front. Then we go to Touchdown. Touchdown is kind of a good go-to color. It's got some brown, it's got some amber, it's got some green pumpkin in it. Again, this one with a little bit of barbed wire in it really has that look of segmented crawdad bodies. It's the right size. It has perfect size, perfect detail for what we're looking for to mimic a Table Rock crawfish. Next one is Bass Whacker. This is probably my favorite color on Table Rock for a number of reasons. Number one, it's an amber and a green pumpkin mix, which really matches the color of the crawdads on Table Rock most of the time. And then it's got a little bit of orange and a little bit of chartreuse mixed in it. All of our crawdads most of the year will have orange in them, and some have a little bit of a chartreuse hue. So that's definitely a killer color on Table Rock. And last, we've got First Down. Green pumpkin, a little bit of subtle orange, and then a little bit of blue mixed in it. Most crawdads, when they're shedding their shells, their shell will take on a blue hue. So that's why it's got the blue in it. That's why black and blue works so well. But this is a much more subtle presentation right there. Hopefully that shows you guys some of the different colors, some of the different things that make this jig a little bit different. Remember, it's got a much more subtle presentation. It's got that fine skirt material. It's got the light wire hook. It's designed to fish in open water, but the Jewel Pee Wee football jig has a lot of features that make it a very special jig to fish not only on Table Rock, but all over the country. Stick them in the face. There he is.
I was on the whole time. This is a better fish. Oh, what do I have here?
You got a KY. That's a better KY.
Pretty good.
That one ate it.
I think he had it for 5 minutes.
Well, that's okay.
Hey, Pee Wee football jig, never let you down. Even when it's miserable tough. Pretty good KY. That's keeper, maybe just short. Corey Mitchell here with Table Rock Fishing Intel. We're out on the lake right now. We just got done catching a few fish on the Pee Wee football jig. I want to show you a couple tips, a couple variations of the Pee Wee football jig. So first, you will see the jig that Eric was throwing right here in the Bass Whacker color. He has orange on the pinchers. Very important tip, okay? A little more bulky, a little bit bigger profile of a bait. What I was throwing was good old PB&J, post front PB&J I like to call it, because that's when I really like to throw it. When it's tough, that works. I was throwing the beeve, I cut it in half. You see I put a little bit of orange on the tail, but not very much, a lesser amount than what Eric has for a little different profile. This, I did not tear the beeve tail, so it kind of glides through the bait, through the water a little differently than what this does. This caused a little more ruckus. This is kind of glides through a little bit more. And then the good old OG version. This is another Pee Wee football jig with the jewel trailer on it, or the jewel craw on it. 4 sections cut off. 4 sections cut off of this thing. You can see a very important difference between each of these is the bulk of the bait, the profile of the bait, big, small, real small. And what happens is you can also see from a profile standpoint the variations, but we still have the orange in there. It's still the same size bait. They're all 7/16 as far as that goes. And then the factor that is equal across all of these, you can see with this bait, the way it's built, the way this is, the pinchers are pointed up, or the body, the trailer is pointed up. On the beeve, pointed up already. When that thing hits the water, it's pointed up in that defensive position. Same thing applies right here with the jewel craw on it as well.
That's a little guy, I think. Yeah, a little smallmouth. Boy, he's a mad little dude. There we go. He's just a little feller, but he's a fish. He's a fish, and he ate it pretty good. Just caught that little smallmouth, and I want to show you why the Pee Wee football jig is so effective on Table Rock Lake. If we look down here, this is the crawdad that little smallmouth just coughed up. And this is the Pee Wee football jig I caught him on. If you notice, look at the crawdad. It's got orange on the pinchers, so does my Pee Wee football jig. It's got orange in the body. There's a little bit of orange here, a little there, a little bit on the arms, a little bit on the legs, even on the tail, there's a little bit of orange. The Pee Wee's got the orange in there as well. Then the body of the craw itself is kind of a brown, green, even there's some hints of chartreuse in there as well. So if you notice on the Pee Wee, we've got brown, we've got green, we've got a little bit of chartreuse. It truly matches the forage that these fish are feeding on day in, day out. Dang near 12 months out of the year, we see crawdads this color on Table Rock Lake. That's why the Pee Wee football jig is so effective. It's the right size, it's the right color, it's what bass feed on Table Rock Lake 7 days a week, 12 months out of the year. So that kind of gives you some of the details on the Jewel Pee Wee football jig, how we like to fish it, where we like to fish it. A lot of factors going on today. Made it an extremely tough day to fish. You know, bluebird skies, post front, very little wind. The lake had come up 3 feet from the storms we just had. Water temperature dropped almost 5 degrees. So a lot of things made the fish scatter, made them not want to bite. We had a really weird bite going on. It seemed like the fish really didn't want the bait. Actually, some of the ones we caught didn't really have it inside their mouth. They were hooked on the outside of the mouth. So a lot of things going on. But we did show you how to fish the jig, the retrieve we use, the different ways we fish it, how to rig the jig, the different trailers we like to put on it, because we had a lot of different, different conditions call for different trailers. We had the speed craw, we had a beaver, we had just a regular jewel finesse craw on there. So we had a lot of different things going on. And then we also got lucky. That last fish I caught coughed up a crawdad, and it showed you just how close the Pee Wee football jig mimics the bait that these fish are feeding on day in, day out on Table Rock. Remember, you can get your Jewel Pee Wee football jigs at jewelbait.com, and while you're there, don't forget to check out Fish Tools. It's their new subscription box. It is definitely something to look at. Gets you baits sent to your door every month that work everywhere, but specifically a lot of them work right here on Table Rock Lake. If you've got an angler in your life that you can't think of what the heck to get them for Christmas, they're going to start selling these things real soon. They get a monthly subscription box at a reduced price from retail that will definitely be a great gift for somebody that's an angler on your Christmas list. This is Eric Prey, Table Rock Fishing Intel, giving you more tips to catch more fish on Table Rock Lake.